Hi there, I'm Dan, I'm a junior doctor and I am leaving the NHS. So over the last 10 years, I've been to medical school, done 2 degrees, worked in Nottingham, Mansfield, Derby, come down to London, worked all across London. I've worked in adults, I've worked in paediatrics, I've worked in intensive cares, I've done all types of shifts. But as I approach my 30s and after 10 years in the profession, my enthusiasm is probably at its lowest. In August of 2022, I started my GP training and that was at St George's in Tusing. St George's is great, but family medicine or general practice was never really what I was looking to do. The plan was to get trained and after that to have a portfolio career where I do bits of what I wanted to do. However, after just 6 months of GP training, I have handed in my notice. So here in the UK, we work in a National Health Service or the NHS.
I'm proud about the National Health Service.
And that has its own challenges.
What do we want? When do we want it?
Obviously, globally, we're facing issues of cost of living, inflation, energy crises. But here in the UK, the NHS did have quite a lot of difficulties even before the pandemic. Arguably, those things have been made much worse by the pandemic. Waiting times are worse, staffing is worse, burnout is higher, and all of that has been reflected with the unprecedented nursing and ambulance strikes, which we're seeing at the moment. As much as I would love to blame all of those things, unfortunately I think this is a bit more of a me problem. So when I started this idea of becoming a doctor, there were 3 things that sort of 16-year-old me highlighted as reasons why to go into medicine. I liked science, I liked talking to people, and I also decided that I couldn't do an office job. With a bit of time and a bit of experience in the working place, I'd probably expand those things. I like learning, but I enjoy talking to people. They don't always have to be sick or actively dying. When I talk to them, I probably couldn't do an office job, but working 1 day a week from home or remotely wouldn't be bad. But over my 20s, I have also gained another thing, and that is that I really value control. During my short career as a doctor so far, my favourite work has been when I've been working as a locum. So for people that don't know, locums are people or parts of the workforce that work freelance and fill in any gaps. There are pros and cons to this. You can take shifts when you want to, but you don't get things like sick pay. So when I was locuming, it was mainly at St George's, so I knew the place pretty well, and also the locums were fairly long term. In the NHS, we have big gaps, and some of them are sort of never filled. This meant that I knew the team, I knew the systems, I knew how the place worked, and having more experience, because this was after my F1 and F2, I enjoyed my role so much more. Ultimately, being able to say yes or no to shifts, it gave me ultimate control. It still works hard. You do get paid better as a locum, but having more control meant that this was very fulfilling work for me. Training is essentially the opposite. You're rotated, you're rotated, you can move hospitals. There's a lot less flexibility. It's no wonder that at the moment only 3 out of 10 doctors after F2 are going into training. I'm not alone in the craving for control of your own life. However, I think my need for control is not just work related and it's much more personal. During my 4th year of medical school, I battled with pretty severe depression, and it meant that I had to postpone exams, do them slightly later, alter my placements, and I was very lucky to have some very good friends that I lived with, some very good family support, and healthcare professionals that looked after me very well. But for 6 months I was pretty unwell. This was in contrast to my first couple of years in medical school, where I had a very alcohol-fueled, stressful and chaotic lifestyle with very little studying, which put immense pressure on me when it came to exams. All of this was made worse by a pretty damaging gambling habit, which I now, looking back and currently, recognise as a gambling addiction. My bank balance would go up and then it would go down and then I would lose it all. And essentially this was so damaging to my mental health. When I look back at this time of my life, I realised that I had absolutely no control. I have now not gambled for the last 6.5 years and my life is so much better. I also drink far less, much more organised, and essentially I have taken back control of my life. I think that's where this kind of is going, is essentially at the moment in the NHS, it is very stressful. All of the environment issues, the fact that there's no staff, the fact that the waiting times are so high, there's no space, all of this also means that you feel like you're out of control, and that is something that I've found really difficult. It's this idea that kind of has led me to create a YouTube channel, look into online businesses. It's the idea that maybe rather than just being a freelance doctor, a locum doctor, maybe I could take it one step further and actually work for myself. When you are locuming in the NHS, like I've said, in an overrun system, are you truly in control? Control is one aspect. I think there are a number of other things that are leading me to take some time away from clinical medicine in the NHS. The first one being the fact that medicine, hospitals, A&Es, they're quite stressful environments. Working in that environment full time, I don't think is that good for me. The other thing is, over the last couple of years, I've realised that I am actually in control of my own destiny. If I don't want to always be doing clinical work, then I would need to put some time into developing skills and experience into things that aren't clinical work. Otherwise, I will remain in clinical work. I have to make that effort, and maybe this is just part of my career. Secondly, I do love chatting to people. I love social interaction, but do I really have to be doing it always as a caregiver when they're looking for reassurance or when they're actively dying and unwell? Could I be communicating in different ways? The other thing is, I don't know whether it's my age. Maybe you always hit this when you're in your late 20s. Maybe this is the start of a midlife crisis. But I'm much more aware of my own mortality, and I'm aware that if I don't do these things now, when will I do them? I don't have kids, I don't have a mortgage, I can take these risks, and ultimately I would regret not trying something different. So, to be honest, making this decision has been pretty tricky, and I think part of that comes from a culture of medicine which, glorifies careers. Currently, as a junior doctor, you will go through F1 and F2, and you're working with these fantastic consultants, registrars, who have unbelievable careers, and they're brilliant. They are fantastic, but just because they are doing that does not mean that I have to do it as well. I really do appreciate those consultants, those GPs that have those fantastic classic careers, because I think it's a really tough job and they do a fantastic job, but I don't think I'm one of them, and that's fine, and I need to be okay with that as well. But making this decision, I had to deal with that idea that I probably won't meet those expectations set by my profession that I probably had set for myself previously. Probably my future is slightly more uncertain than it probably would have been if I could or wanted to pursue a career that was laid out for me. And I think a lot of people in medicine enjoy that safety or comfort, or the fact they don't have to make too many decisions. And the last one was that I had the idea of I put in all this work for nothing. I'm not entirely sure that is true, but it's definitely something that I have felt. I'm still a doctor, I'm still going to be a doctor, but it is just uncertainty, and it's pretty scary sometimes. So the question is, what is next? I don't entirely know what exactly the long term looks like. If you would like to keep up to date with what I'm doing and how this sort of journey from maybe a more classic career to a slightly more hybrid or entrepreneurial career goes, then please do subscribe. Obviously, talking about these things is fairly challenging. So yeah, please like, subscribe, share, and who knows what the future holds, but we are in control, and that's empowering but scary. Cool. Cheers.